Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Podcast, and I'm your host, Adrian Danila. This is episode number 11. Today, we have a very special guest. Today's guest is Gary Gregory. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, Adrian, thank you so much for inviting me to join your show. I've been a fan of it, been watching yours, and man, just an honor to be a part of your show here.
Gary, I wanted to say you have been an integral part of, what sparked, what really determined me to start, doing a podcast and all of that by inviting me to your own podcast. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Adrian, man. When I saw you on LinkedIn and saw the post that you were sharing, I was like, this guy's got something special about him. And I tell you, Adrian, that's a great example of the power of networking, which you have demonstrated beyond measure. And that was just a moment that, I took a chance to reach out to you and say, hey, you seem interesting. I want to learn a little bit more about you. And there was no agenda, no nothing, just a matter of just conversation and hearing your story, which, by the way, is absolutely incredible. And your conversation really helped me, and you say thank you to me, but I have to say thank you to you because our conversation created a kind of a new approach in which I did my video podcast. So I want to thank you for, providing a spark for me to upgrade and change my approach as well.
Yeah, for all of us watching, I just wanted to say things like what Gary does are so important, and here's why they're important. I've been thinking about starting a podcast and having all sorts of projects, but I never really had that, courage to start up until Gary reached out to me. And once he did that, and the video went, online, and we got a decent number of views, and I got some great feedback from people that saw the video. I knew that there was something more to what I was doing, so I really needed to start the podcast. So Gary, sir, you are making a big difference in people's lives. I hope you know that, and I feel like I really needed to tell you that.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Man, I sure appreciate you.
So let's start, Gary, by introducing yourself to the audience. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your current stuff that you're doing right nowadays, and also maybe something about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Gary Gregory, and you can find me. My website is thegarygregory.com. And I've been in the multifamily industry for over 20 years. It's hard to believe the time has gone by so fast. I started in student housing, University of Houston, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, then got into multifamily housing with some amazing companies and learned so much about leadership along the way. A lot of the things that I failed at, a lot of the things that I was successful at, and probably one of the most valuable things was awareness and seeing the leaders that were around me. And that encouraged me, along with, alignments and some other things, to kind of branch out and start helping other people because I had so many people help me along the way to be better. So with thegarygregory.com, I have started a transformational coach program. I do speaking, coaching. I've written a couple of books, best-selling books that I'm extremely excited about. And so I just, it's an opportunity to give back. I started the SUPERFANTASTIC Exchange video podcast. What an incredible opportunity, one, to meet Adrian and so many other incredible people. And we simply talk about their story and what inspires them. And I think when you share inspirational moments, that resonates with other people to help them say, hey, you know what, those things inspire that person. Maybe the things that inspire me are valid as well. And so I think that conversation that I get to have, and it's such an honor to do that, is sharing inspirational moments with other people, which I believe you can never have enough inspirational conversation. And then the other thing that I have started is a masterclass series. Through my experience over the years, I've learned so many things in the books that I've written, so many lessons. And so I'm digging into content with my masterclass series, and it's one a month, and they're free. Just great content, great conversation about some incredible topics.
Gary, these are some fantastic, phenomenal projects, and there's just so much great information, and there's just so much great content that you're putting out there. And like you said, everything is absolutely free for everybody to watch. I commend you for that, sir. It's very important that we have individuals like you that have the drive and actually have the passion to offer something. In my own words, what I used to say about this type of projects and initiatives, this is my way of, this is my community service, the way I contribute to my community, right? Another way is, saying giving back, but I say, this is how I contribute to my community. I just share my knowledge. I try to start, very interesting conversations for people to just kind of watch and maybe, hopefully get inspired, right?
Yeah.
So I thank you again for doing that. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Gary, one other thing that I wanted to, the first thing that I wanted to bring up is, let's talk a little bit about how are we responsible for our own success, self-accountability, right? We all know that there's things that, could be improved in our lives, in our careers, in everything. But then it's so very easy to just say things had to change, right? But I believe that in order for things to change, we have to drive the change. We have to be the change, right? So with that being said, how are we responsible for our own success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share it with, there's two opportunities that you have in your life. You can run by default, which means you just kind of go with the flow and you allow things to happen to you. Or you can run by design, which means you make the decision as to how your life's going to happen. And so that's the two choices. So you can either take ownership of your life, or you can let life take ownership of you. And so a lot of the things that I've seen in my experiences, and I'm guilty of it as well, is, when I started my career in the multifamily housing, I allowed, or I waited for the company to train me. And so, you see all the different training modules and different training environments that, are offered in some respect and some variation, no matter where you work. And so that was kind of a default approach that I had taken when I first got into the industry, that I was like, okay, you company train me. And that's all that I went after. Maybe I looked at something in an apartment association or something like that, but it was at the push of the company that I worked for. And it wasn't until I made the decision, or I identified the need for me to take ownership of my own success, that things changed. I was a community manager for 16 years. And that's a long time. Some people, that's good, that's great, that's where they fit, that's where they, want to be, and that's fine. But I realized until I took ownership of my next level, that's where I would stay. I would just kind of float along with what the company decided for me to be. And I no longer wanted that. And so for us to take ownership of our success, we have to take ownership of our actions, whether that means raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm interested in doing a little bit more. Hey, I want to get involved in this. Or, hey, I did some research and I found this apartment association event, training, seminar, whatever, I want to be a part of. Whether they say yes or no is irrelevant. You have the choice and option to be a part of it. And so that's where our responsibility is to be accountable for our own success through the choices, the design, the actions that we take to kind of create our own training opportunities, and don't wait for somebody or something else to do them for you.
The way I see this topic, Gary, and I said this often, is that I've been, like you said, I've been guilty of it myself, right? Waiting for my direct supervisor or my boss's boss to come and say, hey, Adrian, would you like to be involved in this project? Would you like to, get promoted? Would you like to? I had this idea that somehow somebody else has to come to me and just direct me towards opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was a very long wait and very painful, honestly, because I put my faith in somebody else's hands, not just the fate, but I'll say I put the responsibility in other people's hands. And I don't think it's actually fair. I think that, you own your own destiny, you make your own choices, you create, you build your own success. Of course, you need people along the way to help you become successful, but at the end of the day, you own it. Like, you're the owner of that, of that piece, of that success. So whether you're successful or not, the number one person to be, praised for, to be guilty of, not getting there, it's you. It's always you. So thank you for the great message.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of add to your point, if we put that burden of our success on our supervisor, then that's not fair to your supervisor. It's not fair to your company. That's a burden you're placing on them. That's a responsibility for yourself to take ownership of, for your own success, so that you become a value to your company beyond just where you're at.
It's 100%. It's 100%. We have to be accountable.
Mm-hmm.
We
Absolutely.
have to hold ourselves accountable, right?
Yeah.
And don't maybe necessarily wait for somebody else to say that's your responsibility. It has to come from within. Yeah. So, definitely great stuff, Gary. Now, we're both been in an industry for a very long time, in a multifamily industry, and our industry, but not just our industry, but in general, the labor market is very tight. I was part of a group last night that have discussed some issues in Atlanta multifamily market, and one of the numbers that I heard over there was that the average vacancy at the site level for all the companies is like 34 or 38%. So close to 40% of all available, of all jobs at the site level, they're open. That's a scary number, right? Yeah. That's a scary number. So this brings me to the next topic, which is the Great Resignation, right? Mm-hmm. Great Resignation is not just something that happened overnight. We just woke up on one morning and here's something to deal with, right? It happened over a long period of time. It built up, I wanted to say, right? So I wanted to ask you, Gary, how do you think we got here, to this point? And then how do we deal with it? How do we manage? How do we solve this problem? How do we, I won't say make it go away, but how do we deal with it and still be able to run the business?
Sure. I couldn't tell you exactly how we got to the Great Resignation, but I would imagine we've been on a course, for so long where, it is what it is. And, we've placed, and we'll just talk in the multifamily industry, we placed the office associates here, we've placed maintenance associates here. We've created this structure of, here's your job description and here's your perceived value. And when COVID came around, and I'll use COVID as an experience in which, I believe it uncovered, what is the value of the associates individually. And we identified, okay, we can actually run our communities, by working from home, with the exception of certain roles. And those roles, for the most part, were maintenance. And I believe that uncovered what the true inherent value of the maintenance team is to the multifamily industry. And it was, it was kind of and I don't want to say it in a bad way. I believe, the maintenance have been appreciated, but I believe that the COVID scenario, the burden that was placed on the maintenance guys and the burden that of, protecting themselves and all the new things that had to be done just uncovered that value of that maintenance team. And so I believe that just from my piece, my perspective is it just, this whole perspective, this whole COVID environment just uncovered the value of the associates. And I believe from that, people started seeing their self-worth. And if they weren't, they're starting to say self-awareness and saying, hey, I really am valuable, because without me, this community would not function, period. You can, and not saying anything bad about the office associates, but you can do essentially most of that function online or from home. But with the maintenance team, you need a physical person that knows what they're doing there at the community, bottom line. And that's where I believe that the maintenance team, and I'm just putting a lot of, examples on the maintenance team, because that's kind of where a lot of the struggle or the challengers are coming from. But I believe the maintenance team really created an awareness of their true value. And, that's where I see it. And so the Great Resignation, I believe, is creating the great opportunity. And so when you see there's so many openings out there, whether it's in the multifamily industry or any kind of industry, that great opportunity is an opportunity, in a couple of perspectives. Is one, if you're staying with a company, here's your opportunity to raise your hand and say, hey, you know what, I can step up and step into a new position, promotion, and grow. And there's also opportunities for, associates to say, hey, you know what, this isn't fitting in my career plan, my self-awareness, where I want to be in my life. And then now here's an opportunity to see what that value is somewhere else potentially. And so, for companies that may be a struggle, and I think they need to address that value, perceived value. We can talk about human capital in a whole another conversation, but I also believe it creates an opportunity for people to say, hey, either raise my hand and elevate themselves to the next level, or find that other opportunity where that fits in their future goals.
I couldn't say it better, Gary. And I'm glad that you brought up the COVID, right? The COVID situation. Well, the COVID situation, I think, also did something else to us as individuals. And that was the time when we couldn't really be outside or mixed with we can't really be in close contact with people in general. So
yeah,
we ended up spending more time at home with the families. Mm-hmm. So I think for generations, this was not really a thing, especially right here in this country, because everybody was so focused on work first, and then whatever time it's left, it's family and whatever other activities. Well, now the coin was flipped, mm-hmm. and we ended up spending significantly more time at home with the families. And I think we realized that we lost time, maybe. We realized that we value this time, mm-hmm. and then we're not willing to just not spend enough time with our loved ones, because time is a non-renewable resource, right? Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah,
we don't want to miss those moments with our loved ones. So I think that's part of the reason why what's happening, it is happening. Do you agree?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I think, it really has changed a lot of people's perspectives. Me for one, I used to work in a corporate office or regional office, and now I work from home. And so it really has changed a perspective, that realizing the importance of family, because that truly is your foundational part of your life. And if you don't have your family right, then everything else that stacks on top of it is going to be shaky. And so I think, to your point, Adrian, when you said we realized, because we got to spend time with our family because of COVID, that we realized how special and how important family is. And it really is the foundation of your world, and everything else stacks on top of that. So when family's right, when your marriage is right, everything else will have some foundation, some solid foundation to stand on. And there's also, and just kind of expound a little bit on it, I know we've kind of gone on a tangent, but your family is a microcosm of how you do the rest of your world. And there's leadership in it, there's a relationship, there's management, there's, so many skills that you get by being a part of a family, whether it's a family of origin, a family of choice, your whatever. That is such a great training ground for your life. And if you get that right, those are skills that you can use everywhere else in your career, wherever else you can apply those. But family of origin, family of choice is truly a foundational piece of growing yourself outside of family.
Everything starts at home.
Amen. Yes.
Everything starts at home. So another topic I want to touch on, Gary, is company culture, right? How important is company culture in the happiness of our associates, retention rates, tenure? How much do people value, or how much that company culture, the way it is, determines if they decide to sign up with the company, or if they're already there, if they decide to make it a long-term commitment or not, the other way around?
Yeah. Oh, I believe, there's a couple of, conversations I could have on company culture. One is absolutely company culture is so special to the overall functioning of the community, because that's the perceived community that you have of a company. You've got a mission statement, you've got core values, and all of those things, and the relationship building that you have from the top to the bottom is so valuable. Now, you can have culture on paper or on a website, and it looks nice, it's pretty decorated, written so well, and it reads well, and you're applying for a job at a company, and you're looking at their website, and you're like, wow, they've really put some thought and care into crafting and curating these core values and mission statement. And then when you get to looking at other websites like Glassdoor or Yelp, or other websites that review the associates, that is a telltale sign of a company's true culture. And when you've got something on a company website, the mission statement, core values is one thing, but what you see on those websites is something that is the true view of a company's culture. And so if there's a disconnect there between those two things, that's a telltale sign. If you've got good reviews and good core values and mission written on paper, hey, that's a good thing. You've got buy-in, you've got ownership of the culture that's created together. If you've got a disconnect, then you may not have much buy-in, or that may be more lip service, or written on paper, than it is and put into play in a day-to-day activities. And so that's company culture, so important across the board. Just get back to your original question. I think if you get to a company that has a culture that aligns with your own personal core values or your own personal mission, then you really can engage with that company and you become a contributor to that culture. And so I think you really, it's so valuable, but in the same respect, you've got to make sure your values, your mission connects and aligns with the company that you're working for.
Totally agree. A few thoughts on my own on the culture subject, right? One of the things that I think we could add to the list that you mentioned, company website versus the company reviews and everything. I think another way of telling what type of company culture a company has is just by doing a search online on the job boards, on Indeed, for example, or ZipRecruiter, right? And then if you type in the company name for a special, for a specific region, and then you see that there's like a 2-page list of job openings, then you could compare that with the industry average, right? Because in all reality, everybody has a lot of openings. I just mentioned those numbers earlier on, but typically when you see that some companies exceed that average number, like they have so many openings or something else, if there's the same position that's being advertised every few months, if you're watching the job boards, and you see you're a manager and you see that specific community manager position being advertised 2-3 times a year, that's also a sign of a disconnect, or even worse than that, a toxic company culture. In my personal opinion, I say this, right? Culture needs to be walked. It can be outsourced and it can be delegated from the top.
Right.
You really have to walk it, and it starts at the very top, right? People at the very top executive level and then regional level, they have to walk the culture, and then people eventually will embrace it at a side level too. But it has to be walked, not just talked about it, like you said, lip service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also believe, there's it comes into play clear expectations. When you walk into a company and they give you clear expectations and they're very transparent and authentic about who they are, then that gives you another glimpse into, does this align with who I am? And so I think that's absolutely, and there's so many different ways that you can research, and read between the lines of what a company's culture is. And I love your points as well about those consistent job openings, or the volume of, really is a telltale sign also.
Yeah, in all reality, nothing could be hidden nowadays. There's really no secrets about who we are as individuals, as professionals, as a company. There are really no secrets. Like literally everything that you need to know is on the internet, especially when it comes to companies. Like everything's out there. You just have to really take the time and research. So I also think that us as managers, as leaders, we should be very upfront with everything that our environment has to offer.
Yeah,
it's probably best. It is best for our candidates to learn upfront what type of environment they're about to become a part of, versus learning later on and maybe the hard way, right? Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd much rather somebody tell me no upfront because it doesn't fit into who they are and what they're hoping to be a part of, than getting them in there 3-6 months later and they're like, man, this isn't just a good fit. And then it just creates a lot more work. And I truly believe, just like consumers have got extremely savvy, very knowledgeable, I believe, employees are also consumers, and they've become very savvy as to what they want, what their expectations are, how to research it. And so, as a company, you have to understand that your customers are smart consumers and your employees are smart consumers as well.
I absolutely love that you're saying this, because one of the things that I've been really passionate about, I've been saying for a while now, is that when we actually advertise job openings, we're actually selling a product.
Yeah,
it's no different than just selling a product, right? Because we advertise, hopefully, right, our pay, our benefits, work environment, and also there's job descriptions right there. But basically, that's what we're trying to sell to our potential candidates, right? So when a job is not being filled, for a very long time, I think we should really improve. We can't really be in a mindset of blaming it on a candidate, saying that either we're paying enough, people are not interested in working. A personal experience, and there's quite a bit that I have when it comes to candidates and interviews and recruiting, is that really, if you're coming up, if you're packaging the right type of opportunity, people will sign up, people will be interested. There are a lot of people that are very interested, they're on the market, but they're not interested in just any opportunity, period, right?
Yeah.
Very specific, like you said, Gary. They're very consumer, they're like the consumer, and very educated. They know exactly what they want. So unless what you're offering is at least like a 80% match, I will say, or higher than what they hope to get out of their new next opportunity, it's just not going to happen. You won't be able to make it hard.
Yeah, I think we have marketing departments for a lot of our companies that focus solely on our product, whether it's an apartment, and so we're focusing on the 1 bedroom, the 2 bedroom, how the environment, the amenities and stuff like that. I think we also need to look at, do we need a marketing department for HR? Where can we start marketing? Hey, we got maintenance position, we've got a community manager position. What does that look like? How does that feel? It really is, because like I said, the consumers, one set of consumers grab the apartments, the other set of consumers fill the vacancies for our positions.
I love the idea of a marketing department that reaches beyond just marketing the product that we're selling, apartments, right? We're selling way more than apartments. Again, going back to what I just said, like the jobs, they're a product too.
Yeah.
And I actually think, culture needs to be sold, like the real culture. Not something, for example, not a like super edited video of someone that, says on the video how great it is to work for, ABC company, for their company, but actually raw material. If I was to be in a position, I think I would pay someone with a camera to just follow certain executives or certain managers around and basically do raw video of what a day looks like, and then go back and cut pieces and just use those pieces as original content. I truly believe that this type of format of content, like the conversation we're having right now, and raw video that's, is being pitched and then being posted on social media, has a lot more impact than something that's super edited and it's just like an infomercial, right? Rather than just a real situation, right? It doesn't. I think credibility is not so much as the credibility of just watching someone, like speaking with someone, a real conversation, a real interaction, just two people, interacting in real world, nothing staged, right? That will look staged.
Yeah, and I think credibility comes from authenticity. And so if we're able to present an authentic who we are as a company, sometimes there's good, sometimes there's good, sometimes there's bad, sometimes they're ugly, but it's real. And, of course, any company, you don't want to, your apartment, you don't want to share, sometimes a sink leaks or whatever the story may be, but at least you want to present an authentic look of your product, whether that's the apartment or whether that's the open position that you have available. And I really do. Credibility comes from authenticity.
Absolutely. Gary, one other item that I would like to touch during our conversation is training. I think we both agree, and I think everybody that's watching agrees, training is important. But, let's talk about how would you envision training to look like the ideal training, right? In 2022, what would be your ideal training? What would look like if you were to design a training program for your company, whether it's maintenance, leasing, or management?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to figure out how people learn. And I think we've been so settled in, it's convenience training that we've presented for quite some time, because it's very simple, very easy to, you've got something online, you've got a video presentation that, your team can watch and check the box. And I think a lot of our training has become a checklist where we can check the box. They've gone through the fair housing, they've gone through the compliance, they've gone through this. And so we need to create a little more, and I don't have all the answers, but I think we need to create something more than just a checklist, check the box type approach of training, because, and I may get this quote wrong, but teach me, show me, let me do it is such a valuable way to train and engage somebody. So, because I can sit here, you and I can talk all day about theory, about what it could be, should be, but once you're out there in the field doing it, it's a different feel. And so I if I had to put what my ideal training package would be, is a teach me, show me, let me do it approach. And so there's value in the conversation, there's value in presenting the information, And there's also value in, okay, how does this apply to me? How does this apply to my scenario? Because theory is great, but I need to know how to apply it. And that's the show me. And then let me do it. That's where you're practicing what I've showed you, not what I think it should be, but here's the theory, here's how I apply it. Now let me do it with this customer. Let me do that with this, refrigerator, whatever the scenario may be. And there's some great people out there that I follow that actually, from maintenance side, they actually let the guys and the gals do, replacing an AC unit together. I mean, like, they're hands-on doing these things. And I think that's so valuable. But, and there's another component to training that I would add to this is follow-up. Because I think a lot of times, teach me, show me, let me do it. But if we don't do the follow-up, if we don't do the support in a timely fashion, then we miss connecting with the teams that have gone through that training. Did they do it right? Yes, let's celebrate. Did they miss the mark somewhere? Maybe. Let's engage right then and there to correct it in a professional way, so that the next time they do it, they're like, click, got it. I'm applying it again to this next scenario. So teach me, show me, let me do it, follow up with me. That would be my approach.
I love it. I love it. And training, you did mention, of course, you word it a different way, but I believe it has to be personalized.
Yeah.
Personalized to the individual, personalized to the specific issue, right? Because in other words, we could say we're going to learn how to fix, how to repair, let's say, you said a refrigerator, but there's many types of refrigerator out there. So refrigerators out there, and although generic components are all the same probably, and the specifics of refrigeration are the same, but there's also brand specific items that got to be addressed. Gary, I truly enjoy our conversation. Unfortunately, we're about to bring this to an end for right now. I hope that we could maybe down the line we could reconnect and just continue, right? Because there's just so much more I wanted to cover with you in the near future. Would you like to share a few thoughts that a few things in closing, maybe a few things we haven't touched on, or a few things that you would like to share with our audience, period?
Yeah. So, one of the things that is so important to me is, and I'll share with you my tagline is create your super fantastic. And I really believe this, and this is just kind of what I've kind of wrapped my world around, is I firmly believe everybody has a super, and the super is a gift, talent, and a skill that when they develop it, they can create their fantastic, which is a environment or circumstance around them. So when you create your super fantastic, it's an action that you take to develop you so that you can create a better world around you. And so I want everybody to remember that, it's your choice, it's your action to take, but you have to do it to create your super fantastic. So that's my closing thought to you, Adrian.
Gary, thank you so much for coming. This was for sure a super fantastic conversation. I love it. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up here. Thank you everybody for watching us. This is Multifamily Chronicles, episode number 11, and I hope to see you back soon, watching our next episodes.